Nectar of Devotion. Not commentary, actually, Prabhupada translated it as it is. So we start with the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. So the Shad Goswami Ashtakam, which Divya Rukmini Mataji so wonderfully sang, it glorifies the position of 6 Goswamis, and this is composed by Srila Srinivas Acharya, in which in one stanza he writes, Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipunau Shad Dharma Samsthapakau Lokanam Hitakarinau Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karau Radha Krishna Padara Vind Bhajana Nandena Mattalikau Vande Rupa Sanatanau Raghuyugau Sri Jiva Gopalakau. So he glorifies the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan as Nana Shastra Vichara Naika. So it is explained that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did not formally accept any disciples. The 6 Goswamis are mentioned as his student, and in certain parts of Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada also refers to the 6 Goswamis, including Srila Rupa Goswami, as disciple. But we will see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not formally give initiation. However, he did accept these 6 Goswamis as his principal students, through whom he gave his own mood and mission in terms of how the science of devotional service should be presented for the sake of practicing devotees. And as far as the mood of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mentioned, he was very spontaneous in his preaching, that he was mad in the love of Lord Shri Krishna and in chanting of the holy names. And he inspired the people in general also to be mad in the chanting of the holy names. However, this specific task, and a very important task of presenting a systematic presentation of the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy by analyzing and scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures and presenting the conclusion, the essence of all these scriptures as a practical means for the practice of devotional service for the devotees, that task he left to his principal students, and including also the excavation of the holy places of Vrindavan. So these are mentioned as the special characteristics, the special in the glorification of the Goswamis in the 6 in the Shad Goswami Ashtakam. And they also did Sat Dharma Samsthapakau, which Srila Prabhupada translates as establishing eternal religious principles. So the verb sthapakau means to establish, and samsthapakau means to thoroughly establish. So these 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they were responsible for thoroughly establishing the essence of the religious principles for the practice of the devotees. So that has been their immense contribution. And Srila Prabhupada glorifies them in several of his classes, saying how all of them came from aristocratic background, from a very, very pious, high-class Brahmin families, and many the principal of these Goswamis, including Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they were ministers on very high post in the government in the rule of Nawab Hussain Shah. Sanatan Goswami specifically was the prime minister, and Rupa Goswami was the finance minister in the rule under the rule of Nawab Hussain Shah, the Muslim Mughal ruler of Bengal. Srila Prabhupada writes, they wrote so many books just to establish what is real religion. Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipuno Shad Dharma Samsthapako. In fact, one point that is mentioned about these Goswamis, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu invested so much of his time and effort in explaining the concept and the understanding of the Bhakti Yoga principles, that he spent around 2 full months on the bank of the Dashashwamedh Ghat in Varanasi, explaining the principles of devotional service to Srila Sanatan Goswami. And similarly, he spent also around 10 days having a one-on-one intense dialogue conversation explaining the Bhakti Yoga principles to Sri Rupa Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada has mentioned these conversations between Lord Chaitanya with Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami as part of his teachings in his book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada explains why did these 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan took all these effort, took this order and mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What was the purpose? Lokanam Hitakarinao. They were simply doing the welfare activities for the people in general, for all of us. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in one of his classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, text 212, formerly the society was not so much degraded. As soon as you give evidence from the Vedic literature, they would accept. So these Goswamis were making research from the Vedic literature, including Samaved, Rigved, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Puranas, Mahabharat, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. You will find in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu evidences for this scriptures which the Goswamis referred. In fact, if we see the list of the references which Srila Rupa Goswami has taken from in his writing of the book Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, which is given at the end of the book Nectar of Devotion, we see there are so many literatures that he has referred to. And some of these principal ones Srila Prabhupada has mentioned here. Samaved, Rigved, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutras, Puranas. So in fact, we heard yesterday in Srimad Bhagavatam class by Aishwarya Subhadra Mataji how the Hare Krishna Mahamantra itself is the hymn from Samaved, which was resounded due to the flapping of the wings of Garudaji as he carries Lord Vishnu. So all these essence of the scriptures were taken by the Goswamis because as we know in the modern times, nobody has time to go and study all these scriptures in details. So the essence of all these scriptures was presented for the practice of Bhakti Yoga principles for all of us. And within these Goswamis, we have Srila Rupa Goswami. So Srila Prabhupada mentions Rupa Goswami as the primary Acharya of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And we will also see in the subsequent slide what is the title used by Srila Prabhupada and the previous Acharyas to explain the position of Srila Rupa Goswami and what is his significance for all the followers of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So just now, while starting, we recite the Mangalacharan prayers, in which the first prayer after offering our respects to the spiritual master is the offering of the respects to Srila Rupa Goswami. We recite Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he specifically established the mood and mission of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to fulfill his mission and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire in this material world. He carried out this important task. Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. And when will that personality, Srila Rupa Goswami, give me the shelter under his lotus feet? So in this regard, there also comes one pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once visiting the hut in which Srila Rupa Goswami was staying on the banks of the Ganges. When Srila Rupa Goswami had gone out to take his bath, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finds a leaf on which Sri Rupa Goswami has composed one particular verse, and he opens it and reads it. Now, I don't recollect the exact verse. Maybe I'll also request Namanishta Prabhuji to explain on this. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so pleasantly surprised that he immediately shows that composition by Srila Rupa Goswami to his secretary, Swarup Damodar Goswami. And he asked him, my dear Swarupa, how is it that this Rupa has understood the very mood of my heart? And Swarupa Damodar Goswami says, it's only because Mahaprabhu, you have given him your full mercy. So Srila Rupa Goswami was specifically empowered by the Lord for this mission of establishing the mood and mission of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this world. So we offer him our pranams as part of the Mangalacharan prayers. Srila Rupa Goswami is described as the Bhakti Rasa Acharya. So it is explained by Srila Prabhupada in teachings of Lord Chaitanya that before that, we'll just take a pause here. Namanishta Prabhuji, do you want to mention anything on that pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu acknowledging Rupa Goswami as having understood the essence of his heart, or you would like to conclude after
That
this?
was that was a very interesting incident. That is the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That is when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once was visiting. Hey, let's go. Once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, my voice is clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was once visiting the house where Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami never entered Jagannath Puri temple out of their humility. And they were staying in Haridas Thakur house. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to personally come, and then one day he saw him writing. He said, "What are you writing? These words." His handwriting was like pearls. In fact, you also have an instance when our conscience becomes good, we write very good handwriting. Anna? In fact, they have a specialist who can, by handwriting, tell you the psychology. Anyway, our conscience goes up and down, so handwriting keeps changing. So he said, "These are like pearls. And what have you written?" And he read there that he actually understood the mind of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He could understand. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shakti Asma. When he read all this thing, he said, "Who told him all this? This is all my confidential pastime." So this was, he said he has understood. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale. Therefore we say, Rupa Goswami is establishing the mission of Lord Chaitanya on earth. Yes, Prabhuji, continue.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the various principles of Bhakti Tattva, which includes how the Bhakti Lata Bij, how it is grown by the regular practice of the processes of Shravanam, hearing, and Kirtana, glorifying and chanting the holy names of the Lord, his activities, pastimes. Krishna Tattva, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also explained about the various incarnations of Lord Krishna and the specifics of the principles of sadhana bhakti to Sri Sanatan Goswami. And he also explained Rasa Tattva, how various rasas, various mellows of devotional service, how Krishna, as in his position as the Rasaraj, he is also mentioned in the subsequent slide as Akhila Rasatma, Akhila Rasamrita Murti, that he is the personality who exchanges all types of various rasas with his devotees, So all this position of Lord Krishna as rasa and the rasa tattva was also explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically to Rupa Goswami. So all these details are mentioned in Srila Prabhupada's book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So Srila, in this book, Sri Rupa Goswami is also described as Bhakti Rasa Acharya, or that person who knows the essence of devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada mentions his means Sri Rupa Goswami. His famous book, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, is the science of devotional service. And by reading this book, one can understand the meaning of devotional service. So one comparison, of course, I have not put it in the slide, we can understand is Srila Prabhupada explains the Bhagavad-Gita as the graduation study of the Bhakti Yoga principles. So once we study Bhagavad-Gita, specifically for the practitioners of devotional service, not for the newcomers, but specifically those devotees who already know the basics of bhakti and are practicing devotees, for them this book is very, very important. And Srila Prabhupada, as we will also see in the subsequent slide, how he showed from his own practical example, devotees should understand the details given in this book for the advancement in their devotional life. So this Srila Prabhupada has also mentioned in his Chaitanya Charitamrita purport on the Adi Leela, chapter 5, text 203. And Sri Rupa Goswami, it is also explained by one of the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Narahari Sarkar, who is again one of the intimate associate of the Lord. He has written a book, Gauda Ganodasha Deepika, probably he has composed. So in this particular book, Gauda Ganodasha Deepika, he has mentioned the position of each and every, not each and every, but many of the associates of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is their eternal position in service to Shri Radha Krishna in the spiritual world. So regarding Rupa Goswami, Narahari Sarkar has written, Sri Rupa Goswami is described to be the Gopi Sri Rupa Manjari in the spiritual world. And Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is the most celebrated book by Srila Rupa Goswami. This again Srila Prabhupada writes in one of the purports in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And another very important thing, the name of our society as International Society for Krishna Consciousness, this term was coined by Srila Prabhupada, again taking inspiration from the writings of Srila Rupa Goswami. And this is mentioned by Srila Satsurup Das Goswami Maharaj in Srila Prabhupada Leelamrut. So if we can have a devotee volunteer to read this. Any devotees would like to read? Gunashri Mataji, Hare Krishna, please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Significance, Srila Rupa Goswami. Significance for the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We shall call our society ISKCON. Prabhupada laughed playfully. Sorry, Prabhu.
You can't
Okay.
see the whole slide?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can read, Prabhu. Prabhupada laughed playfully when the first, when he first coined the acronym. He had initiated the legal work of incorporation that spring while still living on the Bowery. But even before its legal beginning, Prabhupada had been talking about this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And so it had been appeared in the letters to India and in the Village Voice. A friend had suggested a title that would sound more familiar to Westerners, International Society for God Consciousness. But Prabhupada had insisted Krishna consciousness. God was vague term, whereas Krishna was exact and scientific. God consciousness was spiritually weaker, less personal. And if Westerners did not know that Krishna was God, then the International Society for Krishna Consciousness would tell them by spreading his glories in every town and village. Krishna consciousness was Prabhupada's own rendering of a phrase from Srila Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, written in the 16th century. Krishna Bhakti Rasamrita Rasa Bhavita, to be absorbed in the mellows taste of executing devotional service to Krishna, from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita by H.H. Sattva Das Goswami. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gunashri Mataji. So here we see how Srila Prabhupada was personally inspired by the writings and teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami, that even the title of our society he took based on the composition of Srila Rupa Goswami. And we see, like if we were in his place, we would probably think that the term should be relevant for all, and hardly anyone in the Western world knew of Krishna that time. But Prabhupada was very, very insistent that we will name our society as International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And if people don't know about Krishna, we will teach and spread the glories of who Lord Krishna is. Namanishta Prabhuji, you want to mention anything on this, Prabhuji?
Krishna consciousness. Therefore, ISKCON, to even explain the meaning of ISKCON, take many days. It's not easy. Krishna consciousness. To explain this word, Krishna consciousness, takes many days. So it's a very deep meaning. In fact, many people, therefore, when they turn ISKCON, it's just a charity movement. They don't really. And Prabhupada says it's a thoroughly spiritual movement. It's not easy to understand what is ISKCON movement. Prabhupada did not want our ISKCON to be known just as some, social welfare. He kept it the name as it is, and so that we don't change it now. So suppose we were to change it to something as Prabhupada specific, Society for Krishna Consciousness. Another thing is most of the movements are actually by the name of the founder itself. Almost all the movements are in, just notice, this mission, that mission, all are with the name of the founder. They have nothing higher to tell. But here is for Krishna consciousness, very clear and very specific. Okay. In the mellow of executing devotional service. One devotee gave me a very good answer, and I think I've shared many times. It's just like you're having, eat gulab jamun. And after you eat gulab jamun, you feel little taste. Just like you have whole sadhana, you sit down. 4:30 you sit down, get up at 9:30, 5 hours. And when you get up, the slight happiness in the heart. That is rasa. That's the taste, the pleasure of serving Krishna. So you have gulab jamun at the end, there is a slight, nice taste of the ghee and sugar. Very nice. So similarly, when you execute Krishna consciousness, you may be executing so many processes of Krishna Bhakti, Navavida Bhakti, so many things we do, but there's the mellow of offering, pleasure of offering service to Krishna is very, very confidential. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And also about Srila Prabhupada giving special significance for his disciples to understand the detailed instructions and teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami. This specific photo we see Srila Prabhupada speaking on the same book, Nectar of Devotion, sitting right beside the Samadhi Mandir of Sri Rupa Goswami in Vrindavan, in Seva Kunj, Radha Damodar temple. So this is the original photo. And we see that Srila Prabhupada, whenever he used to speak outside the ISKCON temples in India, typically he would speak in Hindi so that other people other than the members of our society who would be attending, they should also understand. And probably there would be some translation for the devotees as well to understand, the Westerners who didn't understand Hindi. But this specific series of classes that Srila Prabhupada held in the winter, during the winter of 1972, October and November, Srila Prabhupada specifically had this series of lectures in English, because Prabhupada mentioned that this series of lecture is specifically for my disciples, for them to understand the details of these principles given by Srila Rupa Goswami. So we can understand the intent and mood of our founder Acharya in giving this book and explaining this. And even if now you search on YouTube, Nectar of Devotion Srila Prabhupada, you will get a series of classes given by Srila Prabhupada. And also one more point, this was one of the first lecture series Srila Prabhupada himself insisted the devotees to arrange for video recording. So we can understand how much intent he was in preserving this message that he was giving to the devotees on Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. And Srila Prabhupada writes that Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the Sanskrit word, we have shortcut the translation Nectar of Devotion. Rupa Goswami's purpose is to present the ocean of Bhakti Rasa. Rasa means mellow, the juice. It is just like the ocean. This ocean has limitation, but that is unlimited. That means the material ocean that we see, it has its shores, right? Although it is huge, big, but it has got limitations. But this ocean of Bhakti, it has no shores. So that is the speciality of the Bhakti process. So in terms of the breakdown of this word, this term, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Srila Prabhupada mentions, Bhakti means devotion, Rasa means mellow, and we will see in the subsequent slide, Krishna's position as the Akhila Rasamrita Murti, that he is expert, he is the topmost person in exchanging all different types of mellows, including the 5 primary and 7 secondary mellows or rasas. And Amrita, it means eternal, or it means nectar as well. And Sindhu means ocean. So nectar of devotion means the limitless ocean of the devotional mellows. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So this again, we can have devotees read. Mamta Mataji, you had raised your hand earlier. You would like to read?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compared Bhakti to a great ocean. When he was speaking before Rupa Goswami, he said that it is just like an ocean. So take a drop of it and you taste it and you will understand what is this ocean. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described a small portion of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Bhakti, devotional service, there is a rasa, taste, and taste is amrita, eternal. The Nectar of Devotion, Vrindavan, October 20th, 1972.
Thank you, Mataji. So this is again taken from that same series which we just discussed about. Srila Prabhupada speaking on this book, Nectar of Devotion. Now, one thing I would just like to clarify from Namanishta Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Srila Prabhupada mentions his presentation of the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu as a summary study. So does it mean that the original book is quite huge and what he has presented is only a small part summary of it? How do we understand, Prabhuji?
No, I have not read the original Sanskrit verses of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, hai na? So I
Yes.
can ask somebody, like we can ask some next time. Atul Krishna Prabhu, just keep a note for him. You escalate
Sure.
the question to him. Okay? Just questions we don't know, just write that. He will also be very happy. I think we can arrange a meeting with all the Bhakti Shastri teachers now with him. Hai na? So
Yes.
some questions that we get, we can ask him. Take care.
Yes, Prabhuji. So in the preface to Nectar of Devotion, as you would have read, Srila Prabhupada mentions that there are various rasas even in the material world. So we would just have some devotee volunteers to read from some of these slides. Namita Mataji had raised her hand. Namita Mataji, you would like to read?
Ha Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Every service has some new features which drives the servitor progressively on and on. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called rasa, or a kind of mellow relationship whose taste is very sweet. Nectar of Devotion, Preface. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have quite a few slides. So I'll request you as well and other devotees in a while. So we see in the material world, we have so many philanthropists, we have so many people who get the rasa by serving either the society, the humanity, to a certain degree of limit which they put. Either they may be the people they are serving within the same locality, within the same geography, within the same nation, within the same social strata, or maybe all humanity. And these people really dedicate their lives. Like there are so many such philanthropic societies, even in India, just to, without naming the specific, just to give an example. So there is a philanthropic society in the eastern part of Maharashtra, which is dedicated to serving the leper patients. And this particular society is so famous that generations of the philanthropists, right from the grandfather to son to the grandson, around 4th to 5th generation is still serving in the same society which they have established to do the rehabilitation and support the life of the leper patients. So Srila Prabhupada explains as part of his conversations and classes that all of these people are feeling a certain kind of mellow, a certain kind of rasa, because of which they are able to go on and even dedicate their own life because they find it very, very satisfactory. So this particular mellow is mentioned in the scriptures as rasa, but these mellows are again divided into the material rasas and the spiritual adhyatmic rasa. So we will see the difference between the two. But one type of example which we just gave, although it is very nice in the mode of goodness, but it still falls under the material rasas. So we will proceed. Yeah. So this is again taken from this famous song Bhajahu Remana by Govinda Das, in which he mentions Chapala Sukha. Chapala means which is very, very, which doesn't endure, which is, what is the translation of Chapala? Anybody can help? Flickering. Yeah, so Aishwarya Subhadra Mataji on the previous point which I had just mentioned has given a comment that Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu original book has also been translated by Bhanu Maharaj, and its original version with all the verses is available. Nectar of Devotion which Srila Prabhupada has presented is a summary study or synopsis. So presented for the devotees. Thank you, Aishwarya Mataji. So coming back to this Chapala Sukh, the flickering happiness in this material world, which is obtained by rendering of these various interactions, various services to personalities, is called Chapala Sukha. Why? because they relish the taste or satisfaction of this material, mellow, mundane rasa, it does not last long. It lasts for some time, but again, person tends to get engaged in different types of service, different types of activities. And that's why the nature of this type of service is explained based on the nature of the mind, which is to accept and to reject. Bhoga and Tyaga. This is the function of the mind. We keep on accepting the things which we like, and after some time, when we get bored with it, if it is a bhautik rasa, material rasa, then we tend to give it up and take up another thing which we relish. Namanishta Prabhuji, would like to mention anything on this, Prabhuji?
Chapala sukala balagi re. Cheating happiness. So recently I met one person and he had 47 dogs. Not one, two, and all foreign brands. And he says, my life, I see God in dog. So what he's seeing is cheating happiness. He's saying Dase Rasa. The dogs are known, that's like a nice servants, and that they desire enjoying that pleasure. But it's material. It doesn't satisfy the heart. It doesn't understand. Okay, so in the material world, we run around, and what all we get actually, we would day and night, we are working very hard. And what is the end of it? To get some cheating happiness. So that's our foolishness. So to become Krishna conscious, actually to become very sampratam labdha buddhi, become very intelligent. So intelligent person can differentiate between chapara sukha and real sukha. And we are in the situation where we are understood theoretically that actually there is Krishna consciousness, but we are still addicted to chapara sukha. By carefully making study of Bhakti Rasamrit, Sindhu will advance and start relishing real sukha and come out gradually, slowly out of chapala sukha, which we are so deeply entrenched in. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Namanishta Prabhuji. So in the preface, Srila Prabhupada also explains how this mundane rasa comes about. Srila Prabhupada mentions that this is due to the association of the living entities with the modes of material nature. He quotes the text from 13th chapter, Karanam Guna Sangasyat, that because we associate with the modes of material nature, the material nature awards us a body to fulfill our desires, our aspirations that are developed based on those modes of material nature. He gives the example, just like a hog. A hog takes pleasure, rasa, in eating abominable substances, the night soil of the human beings. Why? Because it gets a proper rasa in it, and even if we offer the hog food that is cooked in the ghee, it won't enjoy it as much, or it won't attract it as much as the stool. Why? Because the rasa is of a lower nature. And similarly, Srila Prabhupada also mentions, just like if somebody has the deep desire to enjoy the flesh and the blood, then nature would grant us a body which is more conducive for enjoying that kind of rasa, which is that of a carnivorous animal like a tiger, lion, etc., where the person in that particular body, that jiva in that particular body, will be able to properly relish that particular rasa. But the problem with all these rasas, as Prabhuji mentioned, they are very, very flickering. They don't last. And that's why we keep on accepting and rejecting this chapala sukha, the bhautik rasas. And on the other hand, bhakti rasa, Srila Prabhupada explains. Namita Mataji, would you like to read again?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, okay.
Just a second, Prabhuji.
Mm-hmm.
1 second, Prabhuji. Okay. Bhakti Rasa, however, the mellow relished in the transcendental loving service of the Lord does not finish with the end of life. It continues, perpetual, and is therefore called Amrita, that which does not die but exists eternally. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So, yes, next slide as well.
Okay, Prabhuji. Any action performed for the satisfaction of Krishna in this transcendental Bhakti Rasa stage of life can be relished perpetually. When one is thus engaged in devotional service, all varieties of rasas or mellows turn into eternity.
Thank you. And we see so many examples of the devotees who, having performed devotional service to Lord Krishna, either in their next life or even when they left their bodies, the activities of devotional service they could relish and benefit from in subsequent lives. We have famous example of Gajendra. We have famous example of Maharaj Bharat in all these three lives. We also have examples of devotees like including Chota Haridas in the pastime of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although after he passed away and due to the abandonment, the sort of punishment meted out by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to him due to one error in judgment, we see Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to recite he used to relish the recitation of the various songs and singing of Chota Haridas. So the devotional melodies, the Krishna, which are due to the engagement in the transcendental Bhakti Rasa stage, they are relished perpetually in this life as well as next life, and that's why they are called Amrita. They are eternal. And then in the concluding part of the preface, Srila Prabhupada also stresses the importance for us as the followers of Srila Rupa Goswami's teachings. He writes, we are therefore generally known as Rupa Anugas, or the followers in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. The present Krishna consciousness movement is also based on the authority of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. So this title, Prabhupada, it means one who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada is referring to Srila Rupa Goswami as Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. Now we have a group exercise activity. And those of us, if we have gone through the preface, which was the preliminary study we had suggested on the chat group before today's discussion. So the group exercise involves a group of devotees going through the preface section as part of the group exercise and note down the points which Srila Prabhupada mentions his reasons for writing the Nectar of Devotion. And we also have to mention as part of the presentation how these reasons given by Srila Prabhupada are applicable. Sorry, it should be relevant for, not for, how they are relevant for us and the overall society at large. So we probably we can have a volunteer or two from each group to present. So based on the number of devotees we have, and it may not be possible for all the groups to be presented, to be presenting the conclusions, but we'll still cover as many as possible. So Namanishta Prabhuji, can we make them into groups, Prabhuji?
Yeah, you can do. You can
Okay.
do.
Okay, Prabhuji. So let me see how many groups we can make. Probably we won't have too many groups. We'll have around 5 groups. So please do jot down all the points, and maybe I have personally seen there are quite a few reasons Srila Prabhupada mentions. So even if 2 or 3 points are covered by first group, we request the other group to take subsequent points. So while jotting down, you can jot down as many points as you find as a group. So let me make the breakout rooms. So we'll have around 5 breakout rooms. Let me just copy this text. And please take around 10 to 12 minutes for preparation. Don't take too long. So if you want, you can divide the parts of the preface between the group members and come up with the points. Any question or query on this before we get into breakout rooms? All right. So
Basic nature is we love someone. Yeah. But if you are loving something material, it's only temporary. But if you have love the Lord, it is eternal. That is what he's trying to say.
Prabhuji, we have come out of the room.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Murli Prabhu. I hope the time was not too short for you to discuss and note down.
It is always short, Prabhuji, always.
Always short. Yes, Prabhuji. All right. So
No, it is not your mistake. It is my incompetency.
No,
All
it
right.
takes at least 2 minutes for us to start, 2 minutes goes in that.
So since devotees from group 5, I believe they concluded the discussion first. So we can maybe start with group 5 to hear from them, and we request each group maybe to restrict yourself to max 2 to 3 points on why Srila Prabhupada wrote NOD. And whenever you are giving any point explanation, you can give your own, but it will be great if you can give a specific pointer from the preface to support your point of view. So can we have 1 or 2 devotees from group 5?
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu Gunati and Usha Mataji will.
Okay, Usha Mataji, and who is the other devotee?
Gunashri Prabhu.
Gunati.
Gunashri Mataji. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
So the points which we discussed was one thing is it helps us to elevate from the material condition of life to a spiritual platform out there, and stimulate our original love for Krishna, and be solidly situated in Krishna consciousness. And it also helps us to elevate into transcendental pleasure and surpass the material happiness. And it teaches us to do practically the devotional service. Like we have learned many things out there, but how to actually practically implement out there. And also to how whatever the acharyas have taught us through the parampara system, how to actually follow it. And basically how to be happy and make others also follow it out there. So one of the point from the preface is the nectar of devotion will teach us how to turn on the one switch that will immediately brighten everything everywhere. So that is a reference point.
Thank you, Gunashri Mataji. Usha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhujis and Mataji's. There's a slight overlap between the reason why Prabhupada wrote the NOD and how these reasons are relevant for us. It is like a guidebook or a manual again, which helps us to get engaged and fixed in devotional service. Yeah, and it also guarantees us, if you follow all the diktats of it, how to make our life more auspicious and elevate society and living. And it gives us evidences from the Shastras also that makes it very, very convincing. It also tells us what is Bhakti Rasa and how it is different from other ordinary rasas which do not endure. Bhakti Rasa is something very spiritual and gives us great blissful pleasure, which is eternal, unlike sense gratification, which is temporary and can be harmful to us. So I think it is like a handbook or a manual or a guide that teaches us how to engage and fix ourselves in devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Usha Mataji and Gunashri Mataji and the group of devotees. So we now move to, maybe we can have 1 or 2 devotee volunteers from chat room 4.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. From chat room 4, just telling about you want 2 points, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So the
Prabhuji,
first
you
point.
can just tell me the name so I can put a pin. 1 second.
So it is Indira and Jayavan.
Jayavan Prabhuji and Indira Mataji. Okay, 1 second.
Okay. So the first point is all human beings have an attitude of service. There is a need for them to be loved and they want to be happy. That's the first point. Srila Prabhupada wanted to address these points and wanted to inform everybody how to do this. So that's the first point. And the second point is Nectar of Devotion. He wanted to focus on how to attain these results. And example of watering the tree and feeding the stomach is given. Also, there is a turn on switch that will brighten everything and everywhere is also been explained in. That's why I wanted to explain this in Nectar of Devotion. There are 2 points.
Thank you very much, Jaivan Prabhu, Indira Mataji, and group of devotees from chat room 4. So maybe we can have one more group. Chat room 2, can we have 1 or 2 devotee volunteers? Any 1 or 2 devotee volunteers? Divya Rukmini Mataji, Anita Mataji, any volunteers from your group? All right, so maybe we go to group 1. Can we have 1 or 2 devotee volunteers from group 1?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Ratna Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, we discussed a few points. We have chosen the initial paragraphs of the preface. So it starts with a summary of a Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. And previously, the rules were very rigid in the Brahmin community to accept like Muhammadian as a Brahmin. And so an introduction about each Goswamis has been given. Second point is about educating and elevating everyone to the exalted post of a Goswami has been emphasized. And next point is regarding the wealth distribution, whatever the earnings we have, of which 50% has to be given to the devotional service. And next point is not particularly instructed the science of Krishna consciousness. Sorry, something I missed here. Next point is that Rupa Goswami, Lord Srila Rupa Goswami, yeah,
Is you're
on
right,
teaching of on teaching of a Lord with the
can I just add,
knowledge.
Mataji?
Really, yes, Prabhuji, Murli Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, what she was mentioning was that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the transcendental science taught the transcendental science to Rupa Goswami, and then Rupa Goswami, he instructed all the acharyas about this same transcendental science with explanations in Vedic literature, and he could also write not only in other languages like Persian. That would be
sorry, Murli Prabhu, your voice is breaking.
Rupa Goswami was
sorry,
good in both Arabic and okay.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Next point is that only this is for our guidance, that Rupa Goswami has prepared this nectar of devotion for our guidance. And this has been translated into various languages, including the language. And detailedly, we have next point says about the Bhakti and Bhakti Rasa, which is been elaboratedly explained, and quoting various example of the literature's reference. And next point is about the material rasa, which is temporary and extinguishes with the body. So Srila Prabhupada has introduced this Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu to elevate our lives. And all the bona fide actions in Krishna consciousness are permanent. And this is the summary of NOD. And last point, Prabhuji, is the eternal engagement of a Bhakti Rasa can be understood by the serious student upon studying the nectar of devotion. So adoption of Bhakti Rasa or Krishna consciousness will immediately bring one to an auspicious life free from the anxieties, and will bless one with a transcendental existence. So thus minimizing the value of liberation. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Ratna Mataji. So maybe we'll have a couple of devotee names being called out whose recommendation has come on the chat. to also present the points which they had summarized or noted as part of the group discussion. So first is Pradosh Prabhu has written points on the chat. Pradosh Prabhu, would you just like to summarize it for everyone's benefit?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhuji, most of the points has already been discussed. Just to add few points relevant to the content. What was the reason for writing the NOD? Actually, Nectar of Devotion is a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrit, which was originally done by Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. So it was initially written in Sanskrit in order to help the mankind in today's era. The Prabhupada ji has helped us in writing this in English. This is the main reason, and few other reasons which are quite relevant individually and society at large, what I have mentioned in the chat box. To summarize that, the person who are engaged in Krishna conscious movement may take the advantage of this literature, and few people may think this is taking away from the material the life or disconfigure. It's not about that. It teaches us the practical hints how we can live in this material world, and same time we can be engaged in devotional service, thus fulfilling our desire to go back to the Godhead. And this gives more information into the philosophy kind of things, and the general how to love Krishna and be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Pradosh Prabhu. So this is a very, very important point. Just knowing the philosophy is one thing, but the practical application of that philosophy in our day-to-day life as a practicing devotee, this is the main theme. And we will also have one more devotee called out here. Reena Mataji, would you like to present the point which you may have listed as part of the group summary?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, Roni Mataji, for giving me the chance. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Like according to my understanding, like three things, based on three things, Srila Prabhupada, like we wanted to give this nectar of devotion to all of us. So first one is actually like all the living entities, not only the human beings, all the living entities, they have the natural propensity to love somebody, and they have the propensity to serve somebody, and they want to be happy, all the living entities, not only the human beings. So like the problem is like we will be serving us, and the maximum like we'll be serving our family, or it can be extended to the society, nation, international level. But in spite of that, like we are not happy, like even though like we are because we are like satisfying our senses, like it is chapala sukha or it is tyaga bhoga. That's what Prabhupada has explained. So like Prabhupada wants us to repose our service attitude, loving attitude, and being happy to Krishna. So then like we will be attaining highest perfection in our life. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Reena Mataji. So my apologies if any other devotees would like to speak. Please raise your hand if I have missed any. So now, if we don't have any further devotee volunteers to present, one question for all the groups, and those who want to answer, please raise your hand. We learned about the reasons why Srila Prabhupada wrote NOD, and devotees very beautifully explained the crux of this. Srila Prabhupada, I don't know whether it is as part of his writing or as part of his class on this particular preface, he also mentions a prerequisite for understanding these principles that we are going to learn in NOD. Did anybody point out that as part of the reading? What is the prerequisite that Srila Prabhupada mentions we should do in order to appreciate these principles that we are going to learn in NOD? Any devotee volunteer to explain this? What is the prerequisite required for us to appreciate the practical principles given in Nectar of Devotion? All right. So, Judge, I think we have one devotee volunteer. Pradosh Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare-
Prabhuji, what I understand the basic prerequisite would be, this is for those devotees who are already engaged into Krishna consciousness and helping in the movement. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, so one prerequisite Prabhuji mentioned is one should already be engaged in devotional service to a certain level, and then these principles can help us advance further. And also Srila Prabhupada mentions that he quotes the song by Narottam Das Thakur from the Hari Haraya Nama song. He mentions Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas. He mentions that we have to have a solid association of the devotees. By association with the devotees, unless we associate with devotees, we won't be able to appreciate the principles given in this nectar of devotion. So it is very, very important. And Guru Nishtha Mataji has also mentioned reading Bhagavad-Gita rather than understanding. Mataji, can you just elaborate on this?
Prabhuji, by reading Bhagavad-Gita, I meant that one should, Bhagavad-Gita establishes Krishna as the supreme, and it is Krishna that Prabhupada is teaching us whom to love and how to love. So we understand his supreme position by understanding the Bhagavad-Gita. Then we read the nectar of devotion.
Thank you, Mataji. So we clear our concept in terms of position of Lord Krishna, position of the Jiva, and then we come to understanding the points in nectar of devotion. So now we go through some of the remaining slides, and in the concluding portion of our discussion today, we also see the overview of nectar of devotion, specifically the part 1 that we are going to start next. So let me share the slides. Hare Krishna. Yes. So can we have a devotee volunteer to read from some of these slides, which are quotes by Srila Prabhupada, not quotes taken from the preface. So we have few devotee volunteers. I'll take the first one available, Indira Prabhu and Indira Mataji and Jaivan Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Purpose of the nectar of devotion. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations, because we do not know the right method. The method is very simple, but one has to understand it with a cool head. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Just continue, Prabhuji, for 2-3 slides.
Purpose of the nectar of devotion. The nectar of devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being.
Yes, Prabhu. And next one.
I am appealing herewith to such confused men to learn the art of devotional service as directed in the nectar of devotion. And I am sure that the fire of material existence burning within their hearts will be immediately extinguished. Preface, page 15.
16. Yes, 16. Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. So one important point which I also missed mentioning earlier, that this book has great contribution to the society, not only in terms of giving all of us the practical tips of advancing in spiritual life, but some of the very exalted devotees in our movement have also taken up to Krishna consciousness just by reading this book by Srila Prabhupada, especially His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, who left this world last year, 2020. I think it was 2020, if I'm not wrong, not 2021, 2020. So Maharaj came to Krishna consciousness, like when he came first in the moment, the book by Srila Prabhupada, what he got was Nectar of Devotion. So this book is definitely potent, as we can see. Now we go to the last portion, which is planned for discussion today. Originally, the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu Nectar of Devotion is divided just like an ocean into the north part, the south part, east part, and the west part. And all these portions of this particular book are again divided into subsections, which are called as waves. So wave 1, 2, 3, and 4. So don't get confused. Sorry, because of the PPT formatting issue, this is showing in a very small font. So I'll get this corrected when I share the slide. So basically it reads Purva Vibhag, which is the division of the ocean on the east. Then we have Paschim Vibhag, we have Uttara Vibhag and Dakshina Vibhag. So first and foremost, which is most important for the practicing devotees, which includes all the practical applications for the Bhakti Yoga principles, is Purva Vibhag, which contains chapters 1 to 19. In fact, I will have to see the subsequent syllabus for Bhakti Shastri, but as such, typically we cover chapter 1 to 19 itself in the Bhakti Shastri, in the NOD. Aishwarya Mataji, you have any clarity on this regarding subsequent chapters? If we also cover them as part of the curriculum, or it's only chapter 1 to 19? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prakash.
When the nectar of devotion was taken in level 3, sorry.
Yes.
When the nectar of devotion was taken in level 3, it was only up to 19 chapters.
19.
It goes on until 26, but the remaining chapters were not taken.
Okay, Prabhuji. Noted. And again, we are allowed to read after that, but just the principles explained are so exotic on such a higher platform that we can read through on them, provided we have understood the first 19 chapters properly. Overview of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. In the first part, there are 4 waves. That means in the Purva Vibhag. The first being general description of devotional service. Now this is also explained in a schematic form in the subsequent slide. So we have 4 waves as part of the first part of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the Purva Vibhag, which includes chapters 1 to 19. So it includes the Samanya Bhakti, which means the general principles of devotional service, Sadhana Bhakti, which means the regulative principles of devotional service, Bhava Bhakti, which means the devotional service in various melods or rasas, and finally the ultimate goal of life, which is the love of God, Prema Bhakti, is explained in the chapter number 19. And to start with, we invoke in auspiciousness by remembering Lord Shri Krishna, who is the personality of Godhead and who is mentioned as the reservoir of all rasas. He is also mentioned as Rasaraj or Akhila Rasamrita Murti. So we'll just have one devotee volunteer to read through this, and then we conclude our discussion. Anybody would like to read? Rohini Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, ma'am.
Krishna, Akhila Rasamrita Murti. So we can enjoy Krishna's loving service in so many ways, not only by the embrace of the gopis, but in the fight of Bhishma with Krishna and piercing his body with arrows. Therefore, Krishna is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. There are 12 rasas, either primary rasa or secondary rasa. Any rasa, Krishna is ready to respond to any rasa you want to deal with Krishna. That is Krishna's position. The Nectar of Devotion, Vrindavana, October 26, 1972.
Thank you, Mataji. So here it is mentioned that Krishna can reciprocate with the devotees either in any of the 5 primary rasas, and all of those we are quite familiar with, including the Shanta rasa, including service in neutrality, including Dasya rasa, Sakya rasa, Vatsalya rasa, and Madhurya rasa. So all these 5 types of primary rasas we are very much familiar with, but it is also explained there are other secondary rasas, including wonder, including chivalry, so on and so forth. So specifically here, the photo I have shown is of Krishna reciprocating with Bhishma Dev, that although apparently it seemed that in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it is mentioned when Bhishma was shooting Krishna with the arrows, Krishna was personally perceiving those arrows as the flowers being offered by Bhishma, because that was the reciprocation of the devotional rasa between Bhishma and Lord Krishna. So Krishna is that's why called as Akhila Rasamrita Murti. That means he relishes experiencing all these rasas. Externally, it might seem that how come a devotee of the Lord is shooting the Lord with the arrows, but it was not that way, because Bhishma was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So with this, we conclude our discussion today. So today we covered, from the preface, we covered the term Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, how it is the limitless ocean of devotional service. It is unlike the material ocean which has got its shores and limits. We also explained the bhautik rasa versus the adhyatmic rasa, how the material mellows that a person relishes through various activities, including the philanthropic activities, they have their end, they have their limitations, versus the spiritual rasa, adhyatmic rasa, a person can experience in this life, as well as those activities can also help us in the subsequent life in experiencing, in relishing the transcendental activities that we rendered. We also discussed systematically. First, we saw the position of the 6 Goswamis, why they are special, how they were chosen by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself in scrutinizingly studying all the Vedic scriptures and presenting the essence of those Vedic scriptures for practical tips in our devotional life. And we also specifically discussed the significance of Sri Rupa Goswami as that personality who had understood, who had thoroughly understood the mood and mission and heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We also discussed, as part of group activity, Srila Prabhupada's purpose, various purposes in writing Nectar of Devotion, and how they are relevant in our life as a practicing devotee. We also discussed Lord Krishna's position as Akhila Rasamrita Murti, as that personality who is the reservoir of all the mellows, and how Lord Krishna relishes these mellows in interaction with his devotees. And we also presented a very high level overview of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, specifically going into the details of Purva Vibhav, which gives the general principles of devotional service, the regulative principles of sadhana bhakti, and also subsequently the principles of higher stages of bhava bhakti, and finally the love of Godhead, prema bhakti. So this is the last slide of our discussion today. So maybe we have one last devotee to read for us. That devotee who has not got chance. Usha Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Our philosophy is not to mix up with the water superficially, but enter into the water and live there like fish, big fish. But if you remain superficially on the water, then you will be evaporated again and again, thrown outside, come as river. Your coming and going, repetition of birth and death will not stop. One should become a big fish. There is no evaporation. So don't be misled by this Mayavada philosophy that you fall into the water. These things are explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. Departure Lecture, London, March 12, 1975. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So whatever we discussed so far, based on this particular point, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that we have person who is just learning to swim, and once the person has learned how to swim, then also there are further advanced lessons which teach about how we can deep dive even to the deep waters. So similarly, these particular principles given here in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Srila Prabhupada is comparing to either we continue to learn and swim on the surface, and Srila Prabhupada is mentioning, then we will be evaporated again and again and thrown outside and come as river. But if we go into in-depth principles of the practical applications of this Bhakti Yoga items that are given by Srila Rupa Goswami, we can become like a big fish. And there is also analogy given in the preface and introduction of big devotees. Now don't take this analogy the other way around. The big devotees are compared to big sharks. So now shark is definitely not considered like a affectionate entity, but the principle here is just like the shark, it is found in the deep waters. It has the ability to swim in deep waters, not just on the surface. So similarly, these great devotees of the Lord, they understand and practice these principles of devotional service as taught by the acharyas to the in-depth level, not just on the surface. And only then we will be able to relish the the joy of devotional service, the mellow of bhakti yoga. So Namanishta Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, you would like to mention anything, Prabhuji, on this?
No, nice. This is actually, there is an analogy the Mayavadis say, just like a river merged into the ocean, we also merge into the ocean. So Prabhupada then clarifies that the fishes don't merge, they maintain their existence. Don't do surface study. From a surface, it looks like, river is merging into the ocean, but you're deep. Even the molecules don't merge, they maintain their identity, and the fishes definitely don't merge. So this is, don't be misled. That's why it comes to Mayavada philosophy here. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So nice. Everybody is happy starting the study of Nectar or Devotion.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Very happy.
Prabhuji. Yes,
Prabhuji.
Good.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So do we have any questions by any devotees for Namanishta Prabhuji? You can raise your hand and you can probably unmute her, Prabhuji.
Today, just preface, no? Things have, the content is start next class. True?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Today we have the advertisement of Nectar or Devotion. Okay. The nice book. And in fact, yesterday I was just thinking, the kind of memory of the shloka that Goswami has is unimaginable. Because you see in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, it is shocking. He quotes vigorously. For everything he will quote. And the bewildering thing is he's not sitting with a computer like we do. So there's many of those verses by the, and he is a Manjari, not an ordinary personality. But they were writing, when they were writing this, Goswami was writing the literatures, the situation was very different. They're writing with love of Krishna, tears in their eyes of love of Krishna, full of ocean of Krishna conscious pleasure that they are, by their eternal identity experiencing. So we are so fortunate to be in the parampara of these Goswamis. We are a Goswami Grantha. I think the first Goswami Grantha you are studying now, Nectar of Devotion, in the Association of Devotees. Many of you have read. We have all read Nectar of Devotion, but the Association of Devotees, you are reading Goswami Granthas, Nectar of Devotion, and you will also do one more, Nectar of Instruction, smaller work. So we are getting access to 2 books. All gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. And it says, unless you take shelter of the Goswamis, you cannot understand Radha Krishna. That is it. So you are, by the mercy of the Rupa Goswami, you are associating with him through his book, and we will get mercy to be able to appreciate the love of Radha Krishna.
Prabhuji, there is also a question. When are we going to have the test for the 3rd module? So you have...
You decide where.
In terms of the upcoming festivals, Prabhuji, you have any day in mind? So readiness of the questions, we have it ready, Prabhuji. Just need to finalize the date. How much?
You decide.
Okay, Prabhuji. I'll speak with Janaki Mataji and we'll... Murli Prabhu will come back on the chat, Prabhuji. Okay, we'll give, but please start preparing and be ready. Expect maximum 1 or 2 weeks of notice. And also I see some of the devotees have come back saying they are not able to submit their assignment for assignment 2 of module 3 today. So we have given them 1 week extra till 14th of August. So we request devotees to please plan submission, because if you see the evaluation criteria, the open book assignments carry lot of weightage, around almost 65%. So please do give time and effort to fulfill this criteria. Don't expect to sit for test without completing the open book assignments. Any devotees have any issue submitting by next week? All right. So I guess all the devotees are okay to submit. And test will come back. So is there any other announcement, Prabhuji? On the TTC.
Everybody is welcome now. TTC 1 is going to start. There are some 4 vacancies. You can quickly register. Those who have not done the course here, many have done. Ratna Mataji has done. Pran Chaitanya has done. Aishwarya Mataji has done. Negi has done. Chetan Singh Thakur has done. Dharmeshwar Prabhu has done. And then Indra and Jayavant has done. Then Mangala Mataji has done. Dubey has done. Okay. So rudimentary focus. Sri Lakshmi has done. Sujata Subhas has done. The Vilas Vijpute has done. Yes, Adi Shuchil has done. So these many have done. Other people, if you would like to do, it will be good. It will prepare you. So I do not know when the next opportunity comes, but presently it's a very elderly personality, and it's not easy for him. In fact, he says he doesn't even take in Mayapur these classes, but on our request, he is doing all the way coming. It's very tiring actually. So take opportunity, those who want at this time. Otherwise, you can even do this course online. You go to Mayapur Institute, online these courses are available. TTC1, BSTTC1. There are 2 courses you can look at. Those for some practical reasons are not able to come. You can do that. That will help you little, enable to improve your presentation skills. Okay.
So Gurunishta Mataji, your question is answered by Prabhuji just now in terms of online TTC course. Ramesh Prabhu, for batch 2, Bhagavad Gita unit 1 start, based on the language, you can connect to the coordinators, Prabhuji. For English, it will be Aishwarya Subhadra Mataji.
Yeah, Aishwarya Mataji. The many batches are starting this week and next week. So please quickly hurry up. Those who wanted to do, you missed some reason, you missed the module 1. So you can do it now with them. So you can let two things going together, fine with us, not a problem. Double speed you can go.
Where do we register that?
See, Aishwarya Mataji is there, catch her, take it. Okay, communicate with Aishwarya Mataji. Okay. She'll help you. She is the one coordinating English department. Sujesh Prabhu is starting 1 batch. She is starting 1 batch, maybe 1 more batch. So maybe 3 more batches are starting. And we have presently 2 batches running. We want to start 3. Actually, there are more than 1,000 people chanting 16 rounds. So maybe 50 batches we need to start totally. So in English and Hindi, maybe there will be many batches. Probably both of them should have 10 batches each. So we will gradually go. We'll not rush up. Gradually we are doing. Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna 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 Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Dandavat pranam.
Kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhuve cha patita nama pavanebhyo vaishnava nama anant kori vaishnava ki jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai.